Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. How's everyone doing? Good morning, John. Good morning, Kevin from Lakeland. Good morning, OD Green. Happy back to work day, Sterling. Thank you for putting in the earnings. Good morning, Patrick. Sterling putting some earnings here. Domino's Pizza was a miss. Cleveland Cliffs was a beat. Verizon was a beat. What else do we have? Uh, We have to say good morning to Dean. Jacob, good morning. Anissa, good morning. PMG, good morning. Royal Palms, good morning to you. Thank you all for tuning in. All right, we got a big earnings week ahead. Nothing from the Fed this week. We got Powell talking tomorrow, though. Powell talking tomorrow. Good morning, Harold. And then we go in the quiet period ahead of. We also have Bowman speaking tomorrow, but we go in a quiet period ahead of the Fed pause. Would be shocked to see if they cut, but we might get some dissent, but that's for next week. We're getting ahead of ourselves. All right, what do we have today? A very quiet day. Consumer Board Leading Index. That's it. That is it. The rest of this week. Again, we got Powell, we got the Richmond regional indices tomorrow, we got Bowman, we got crude numbers on Wednesday. Again, it's a super quiet week, but Wednesday's big day for earnings. Thursday, jobless claims, S&P manufacturing, Kansas City regional. Again, very quiet week. And Friday, durable goods. So it's all going to be earnings focused this week for the most part. We'll see what Chairman Powell says tomorrow. This morning, Microsoft down slightly. There was a hacking incident, I guess, with them. Everything else in the mega caps are up, flat to up. So far, nothing major. You got basic materials. Gold's breaking out higher today. Yields are dropping. But everything's positive today. Going into the open. Fed watch still has a pause for next week. Fear and greed still an extreme greed. Schiller PE 38.37. So, in terms of earnings, let's just say good morning to Rick first. Afternoon from the Mediterranean. Well, enjoy your time in the Mediterranean, David. And you're tuning in from the Mediterranean. Well, thank you very much. Again, I hope you have I guess you're on vacation, maybe. So I hope you have a wonderful vacation. Good morning, Daniel. Thank you for tuning in. All right. We had Sterling already put it in Verizon. BP Domino's Pizza's up on a miss. I forget why there's somebody gave something positive about them. Again, nothing major today. After the close, not much. Tomorrow we got Lockheed Martin, Coca-Cola before the open, GM, Raytheon. After the close, SAP, Enphase, Capital One. Again, tomorrow's not big. Texas Instruments. Wednesday gets a little more interesting. We got GE, AT&T before the open, but after the close on Wednesday, we got Tesla and Alphabet, and IBM and Chipotle. Big day after the big afternoon on Wednesday. Thursday morning, we got American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, but Intel after the close. Not that they're a huge thing anymore. It'll just be interesting for them to see how their restructuring is going. And then Friday's sort of quiet. C-Day for David. Hello, Charles. What was it? Gold catch-up, I guess, to other precious metals. Gold's still holding the channel. Grand rising to you. Apple waking up. We'll have to see if it can get above the key resistance level and hold above there. Good morning, Heinrich. Again, Apple's earnings are next week. So, oops, I forgot to move a window around. There we go. All right, let's get straight into it. Again, trend is still up. Somewhat flattening out, but unless we close below the daily rotation zone, I got to stay in bull mode. We had the sideways correction, the breakout last week, and we're pausing. If we do break above Friday, remember that was OpX. It's a one-day pausing bar breakout for me so far. That's been key resistance, and we have now set up a mini double top. So that's what I'm looking for. Is that a big bearish pattern? No. Then I'd be going back into at least into the rotation zone to look for new buy setups. So again, the only thing that shifts me in the short term is that when we start closing, there's two things. If I get an outside key reversal bar with momentum selling to the downside, or we start closing below the daily rotation zone. Remember, from the weekly perspective, I mean, still, we're not as oversold because we've been slowing down here. The weekly rotation zone is roughly about just below 6,200. This double top pattern doesn't even take us close. It takes us potentially to 62.92. Now, could we follow through closer to 6,200? Yeah, but we got the weekly rotation zone in the way, with cycles trying to head up. So, again, on a pullback, I'll be looking for these key areas for potential long setups for bounces. And then we'll have to see if it can regain the highs. But we're not even there yet. Going into the open, if we do continue to sell, Friday's low, which is the base of the double, is very key. Until then, if we do not trigger the double, I'm watching the 4-hour rotation zone. Okay? Especially if we drop closer. If we drop closer to about 63.30. Would love to see the drop closer to that with that holding, with a rotation back up. That's what I'm watching. Other than that, breakout, if we do break above Friday's highs, which is also, we stalled out around that key 63.55 harmonic, then we're still at 63.68 as the next target. 63.68. By the way, I forget to take this. We play, again, another wedge pattern that played out with a sideways movement. A sideways movement. So, the only thing for the potential bigger pullback is if, and this might not trigger today, maybe it falls through tomorrow. We'll have to see, as long as it's not invalidated. Again, 63.23 on a closing basis is very key. NASDAQ, we also stalling out at the harmonic on Friday. You see the green line here. That was the projection harmonics. And so that pretty much nailed it on Friday. We listed off those levels. And now we have the same thing. 23,169.50 on a closing basis. So it'd be 23,169.25 key close or lower. 23,094, 23,056, 23,018. Again, against the rotation zone, I'd be looking for this. And look where this could take us back to the prior breakout zone area. So I'd be focused on the first and second targets, mainly on that. That's the only potential short-term pullback thing. We go to the upside and break above this 23,320, 23,486. The only thing that shifts me is if we close below the rotation zone, or we get an outside key reversal bar, or something like that with momentum. But that's coming roughly in at 22,800. Also remember, we are still very, very well above the prior breakout level. On a return to the rotation zone, that doesn't even necessarily take us to a prior breakout level. Now, cycle's still at the top, very overbought. That's why I'm on high alert. But besides this little minor pullback pattern, there's not much. Did I say good morning to Jake? There you go, Jake. Good morning. Domino's stuffed crust pizza is a success. Okay. But you missed on earnings and you missed on revenue. But they're stuffed crust pizza. Let's bring back the Noid. Bring back the Noid, Domino's. Wish you luck. First day of trading futures, taking your advice, trading micros first. And again, if you're trading, you can trade very small with micros and you're not risking much money. So, good job trading the micros and manage your position, okay, and do not overtrade. Dow, not much to talk about. Not much to talk about. Good paying attention to Friday's high and low for me in the Dow. Russell, if we start, there's a little key level right here. There's a very key level right here, which was already tested about 22.67, 68. We start breaking above that. I'm looking for short-term 22.80, and then the highs from Thursday the 10th. If we break down, there's also Russell's in a very interesting position. Pay attention to Friday's lows also. If we break down below there, very key areas about this 22.35. I'll still be watching unless we close below the rotation zone for buy setups. Even though we are at cycle tops on the weekly, I'm still watching for short-term buys because the daily cycles have gotten back to the bottom. That will all change if we close below the daily rotation zones. The VIX, slight bump up, but again, no fear in the market, no fear with anything. The only thing I'm paying attention to, if we do get a sell-off at any point this week, we have to get above about 1775 before I really watch for it to take more of a foothold. DAX, again, first target hit on Friday, little pullback, double still not invalidated. So that's where we sit right there. But first target is hit. What would invalidate at this point if we close below 24,231? It'd be off the table for the rest of it. The yields are dropping. We had the 4-hour rotation, or the 4-hour double trigger, and now they've fallen out of bed with some talk this morning. I'm going to be patient now, watching for the pullback, with cycles at the top rolling over, not yet oversold. Going to be very patient, looking for a pullback and then another turn up in the yields. So, is there anything yet for me? No. We could easily get back to this 4.334, 4.33 area. 30-year also dropping back down. Going to be watching for a new setup in that from the long side, but nothing yet. Crude. Overall, in consolidation, right now, the only thing that would return me to bullish mode in the short term is if we closed above, and this is the continuous roll chart. Remember, on the September futures contract, we played out the head and shoulders. Okay, we played that out on the September contract. And now we have on the continuous roll contract, not back adjusted, but continuous roll contract, we have a potential double. That's the only thing in the short term that gets me minorly bullish. Again, it's valid on the 4-hour time frame. You can see it goes in this tail on the daily. You need a 4-hour close in there. Other than that, I'm really focused on a return to about 64.75, unless that triggers. Gold. Rotation up Friday, officially a % buy close. The high on Thursday was 33.58.2. The close on Friday was 33.58.3. So it technically was a % buy on Friday and following through, holding the channel. So my targets, my next target is 34.19. And then 34.48. Silver rotating back up. Okay, I really going to be paying a close attention to the targets. The upside for me are 39.01 and 39.33. 39.01 puts in potential double top territory. Again, that does not necessarily mean bearish. It just puts it in that territory. Dollar index, as I said last week, I'm starting to watch for the pullback. We're starting to get the short-term pullback. Key level I'm going to be watching for is closer to about 97.20. So I'll be watching for that with cycles rolling over. The yen, going to be watching for a pullback now closer to down here. I don't have the key level just yet. Yeah, it's right around in here. Around 147s. Going to be watching for a pullback into the rotation zone with 147. It's going to be patient in these because of the cycles rolling over. Lots of things changed their stance last week, and they got overbought, like the dollar index, the yen. Now I'm watching for pullbacks, for potential buy setups, but patient buy setups. Spiders. Friday, we had a little reversal bar after gapping just above the minor harmonic. The next key on any rally is 630.58. So that's what I'm watching on a pullback, paying attention to Friday's low, and then if we did break below there, 625 area. The Qs, right now, just a slight gap up from Friday on any roll over to the gap fill, 561.26. Other than that, on a rally, paying close attention to 563 and then Friday's high. My major pullback level in the Qs right now is 558. Bitcoin, so far a nice little sideways. We spiked up on last week, Monday, and a sideways correction. Sideways correction. I'm watching here. If we start breaking above 119,900 is a potential breakout play for me with a stop below the rotation zone. Okay? The minor levels now, those are still your major levels. The minor levels are right here. Minor levels are the cluster between 126,350 and 127,737. I will not watch for the breakout play if we close below the daily rotation zone. I'll watch for then a slightly bigger pullback. Where are we? Only good pizzas: wood-fired margarita with chewy crust and buffalo mozzarella, basil, and light sauce. I like your suggestion, but again, I can do a lot of different pizza. But your suggestion is very good. Suggestion is very good. There's lots of different pizza I can do. Happy Monday, electronic retail day traders and investors. Good morning, Mark. My broker at TradingView showed a high of 33.58.3 on gold for Thursday. That's frustrating. Sometimes it happens. Don't worry about ever missing a trade. Coco, are you in gold bull mode? What mode are you in today, Coco? Can we get a glance at Lily? You know, for you, OD, let's take a glance at it right now. Lily, I was looking at this last week. Lily's caught between a couple key things. If Lily, for me, has to get above the 200 area and then follow through above 822. Okay, this is very key. If we do break out, I'm watching the 200 area. I may have broke above it prior and then gap back below on the last earnings. But we stalled out in that area prior. We stalled out just shy of that area. In order for me to do anything bullish, unless I get a little short-term bullish pattern, which I don't have yet, the only thing I consider on a very short-term trade is if the 761 area holds. If this can hold, so I'd be playing a very tight stop. Okay, because if we close below this, we can easily start the bigger retracement back down to the 710 area. But if we break above here, my targets would be the 800 level, and then potentially, if we can get above that, the 821.68. That's how I'd structure any short-term trade. If this breaks down below 761.50 area, especially on a closing basis, hands off, and I'd be looking for the bigger retracement back down, especially down here closer to the 720. You don't have earnings coming out until the 7th of August. All right, so it's either a short-term breakdown play on a close below 761.50. Again, not trading advice. That's how I'd structure stuff. And then watch for the bigger pullback. Or if it holds this, the aggressive play is for a bounce play, but my target's 800 area and then 821 on any follow through. Tesla going into earnings on Wednesday, would not touch it going into earnings because it's just good. It's shifting into short-term bull mode. Then I'll be watching for the rollover plays. NVIDIA, again, very overextended right now, but there's no major topping pattern. There isn't one just yet. So still watching anything into the 4-hour rotation zone. What is that? Grab and open both look great into next fibs. Grab. Well, since I don't use fibs, I can do the harmonics. So next key, 550, where it's opening up to, and then above there. And that's a pretty key level. That's actually a very key level. Above there, you pretty much, then it's this 565 area. And if you're looking for something on a bigger breakout play above that, then we're doing our major reverse harmonics to 6. What else? Open. We're getting into full short. Oh, come on. What was that? What was that? Again, above 270. So the next key target's on open door. We're getting stuff piled into, again, very crap. We're getting very crappy stocks piled in. But next target's on open door 293, and key anything between 270 and 325 is a major rollover zone again. But a little squeezy going on in open door. Net is opening above the 87.5 retracement from the all-time high. Again, we had the potential double that never triggered. Let's see the minor targets first. Just curious to see how these things line up. The minor targets. All right, so I'd be looking at roughly 202 is a cluster area. And then above that 205, and then your major targets, if it keeps running, uh, 211 and 225. They're saying open is the next CVNA. I'm not buying it. It's just getting squeezed. All right. We got that into the open. Let me just peek at, again, we're in frothy risk on. I am very cautiously still bullish, but very cautiously. Again, from a pure technical perspective, can we get that bigger pullback at any time? Yes, but until we get some warning signs and there's no major topping patterns in place, you got a minor 4-hour potential topping pattern. There's nothing. Again, we have not closed below the rotation zone since we crossed and we had the capitulation buys. We crossed the rotation zone and we have not had a close below it since we broke above it in April, at the end of April. Now, no close below it. So until that happens, got to stay in bull mode. You're welcome, OD Green. Trying to get back into this with discipline. Appreciate your teaching. Key things. Structure your analysis, and that does not mean you have a trade. Don't be worried about missing a trade. There's always another trade. Structure your analysis, do your reward to risk, and wait for things to trigger, whatever that process is for you. and then manage the trade. Always also another key advice I give people, don't set stops to get reward to risk. Set stops where the trade is invalidated. Okay? Set stops where the trade would be invalidated for you or your entry signal. And if you don't get proper reward to risk, it's no trade. And then be patient. There's always another trade. Well, that's very good. See, part-time traders, mornings, and that's the best time to trade is the mornings. Best time to trade, mornings. Circle has been nuts. It seems to be stalling out 62.5 from the highs. You gotta love that. You gotta love the harmonics. No close above it. Spike above it, but no close above it. Again, where does retrace to? Again, this, yeah, into the 50 to 62.5. These are riskier plays. Would not recommend it for newer traders. Again, also with limited price action. But again, you now have enough for the rotation zone, so the first thing I'd be looking at is this 196.50 on a closing basis. Other than that, the only thing that could put me in short-term breakout mode is above 251.18 on the closing basis. OKLO, then I got to run into the open. OKLO is still running higher. If you do break above the highs from the 16th, let's just go through our process. 76.48, 79.42. If you continue the bull run, again, you have potential double top territory. The major cluster area would be roughly around 80 bucks. Would not touch this thing if it broke back below and closed back below this $50 mark. Would not touch it at all. Other than that, trend is still up in the short term because that is a weekly double top. Potential, I should say. That does not mean you get shorted. You just continue to trend is up. So I keep trading this. As long as it didn't close back below the rotation zone, I'd be fine trading it from the long side. With that, I shall talk to NASDAQ blast away from settlement price. Okay, market is open. I got to run into the open, so I shall talk to everyone later. Have a wonderful, wonderful trading day. And keep an eye in the short term on the 4-hour double. Other than that, the trend is still up. So, basing near Friday's highs. Breakout above Friday's highs in the S&P. 63, 68, 50 is my short-term target. With that, I shall talk to everyone later. Bye for now.